There is a man she still thinks about, not because he was the richest, not because he was the most attractive, not because he said the right things at the right time. She thinks about him because of who he was, and somewhere right now, there is a woman thinking about you, or not thinking about you at all. And the difference between those two realities comes down to 10 specific things. Things the ancient Stoics understood thousands of years before modern dating advice ever existed. Things that Marcus Aurelius practiced in his marriage, that Seneca wrote about in his letters, that Epictetus taught to men who had nothing and still commanded deep, lasting respect. If you've ever wondered why some men are unforgettable, why a woman years later still speaks about a certain man with a light in her eyes, this video is going to change how you understand yourself and how you show up in every relationship for the rest of your life. Stay with me, because by number 7, you're going to see yourself differently. Welcome back to Wisdom of the Stoics, the channel dedicated to helping you build the kind of character that doesn't just attract people, but earns their deepest respect. If you're new here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button, because what we do here isn't surface-level motivation. We go deep. We go to the source. Now, before we begin, I want to be clear about something. This video is not about manipulation. It is not about tricks, tactics, or psychological games. The Stoics would have despised that approach. Epictetus, the former slave who became one of the greatest philosophers in history, said something that cuts right to the heart of what we're exploring today. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. What he meant was this: character is not performance. It is not something you put on for an audience. It is who you are when no one is watching. And here's the paradox. The men who are truly unforgettable to women are the ones who were never trying to be remembered. They were simply becoming. Let's talk about what that becoming looks like. 10 things, each one rooted in Stoic philosophy, each one more powerful than the last. Number 1, he made her feel seen, not just looked at. Think about the difference between those two words for a moment. Every man looks. We are visual creatures. This is not a flaw, it is simply biology. But seeing someone, truly seeing them, that is a choice. That is a discipline. And in a world where everyone is staring at a screen, a man who genuinely sees a woman is a man she will carry in her memory for decades. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Confine yourself to the present." That sounds simple, but try it. Try sitting across from someone you care about, and giving them your entire present moment. No rehearsing what you'll say next. No distraction. No judgment, just presence. That kind of attention is so rare that it feels like a superpower. And here's what the Stoics understood that modern dating coaches miss entirely. Women don't just want to be desired. Desire is cheap. Desire is everywhere. They want to be understood. There is a woman somewhere right now who is in a relationship with a man who looks at her every day, and she feels completely invisible. And there is a woman somewhere who had one conversation years ago with a man who truly listened, who asked a question that no one had ever asked her before, who remembered the small detail she mentioned in passing, and she never forgot him. The Stoic practice here is simple but demanding. The next time you are with someone who matters to you, put down the phone. Close the mental tabs. Ask one question you genuinely want to know the answer to. And then listen, not to respond, but to understand. That is presence. And presence is power. Number 2, he had a code he refused to break. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the known world, wrote his Meditations as private notes to himself. He never intended them to be published. They were reminders, accountability, a code he held himself to. When the weight of an empire could have justified any compromise, he wrote, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." Read that again. Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect. Here's what women feel, even when they can't articulate it. They feel the presence or absence of a man's internal code. A man with no code is infinitely flexible. He says what the moment requires. He becomes whoever the room needs him to be. And at first, this can seem charming, agreeable, easy, low friction. But over time, that flexibility reveals itself as something else entirely. Emptiness. A man with a code, on the other hand, has edges. He will disagree with you. He will say no. He will walk away from things that compromise his values, even when walking away is costly. And every time he does, something remarkable happens. She trusts him more. Because a man who won't compromise his values for anything is a man who won't compromise them for anyone, including when the temptation is greatest, including when she isn't watching. Think about the men in your own life you respect most deeply. I'd wager they all have this quality. There's a line they don't cross. You don't even need to know exactly where that line is. You can feel it. That's the code. And building yours, living yours, is not an act of rigidity. It is an act of identity. Number 3. He was calm when everything screamed chaos. Seneca wrote in his letters, "It is not that I am brave. It is that I know what is not worth fearing." That distinction is everything. There's a popular idea that emotional control, Stoic calm, is about suppression, about burying feelings, about becoming a robot. That is a complete misreading of Stoic philosophy. What the Stoics taught was discernment, the discipline to separate things worth reacting to from things that simply aren't, to respond rather than react, to be the thermostat, not the thermometer. And here's why this is unforgettable to a woman. Life is uncertain. Relationships are uncertain. Children get sick. Jobs are lost. Plans collapse. Friendships betray. And in those moments, the real moments, the ones where everything is on fire, a woman discovers who the man beside her actually is. Is he the man who panics? Who blames? Who shuts down or explodes? Or is he the man who takes a breath, looks at the situation clearly and says, "Okay, here's what we do next." That man, calm in the storm, becomes her anchor. And anchors are not forgotten. I want you to think about a time when you were tested, when the pressure was real. How did you respond? Not how you wished you responded, how you actually responded. That answer tells you where you are. The Stoic practice tells you where you're going. The practice is simple. When you feel the urge to react, pause. 1 breath. 2. Ask yourself, is this within my control? What is the wisest response? That pause is where character lives. Number 4. He grew without being pushed. This one is subtle, but it might be the most powerful thing on this entire list. There is a difference between a man who improves because a woman asked him to, and a man who improves because he demands it of himself. The first one creates resentment on both sides. She feels like a mother. He feels like a project. Neither feels like a partner. The second one, he is magnetic, because a man in motion, a man who is genuinely, authentically working on himself, has something radiating from him that no amount of charm can replicate. Direction. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Self-mastery is not a destination. It is a daily practice. The man who wakes up each day and asks, "How do I become better than I was yesterday?" Not for approval, not for applause, but because he genuinely cannot tolerate standing still. That man is on a journey. And women are drawn to men on meaningful journeys, not because they want to ride along, but because purpose is attractive, mission is attractive. A man who knows what he's building and builds it regardless of who's watching. That man is remembered. What are you building right now? What is your 1% better today? It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be real. Number 5. He protected her peace, not just her safety. Most men understand the impulse to protect physically. That's instinct. But the Stoics understood a deeper form of protection, emotional guardianship. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the responsibility of those in power, to consider the inner lives of those around them. He modeled what it looked like to be attuned, not just strategically intelligent, but humanly aware. Here's what this looks like in practice. He notices when she's carrying something she hasn't said yet. He doesn't crowd her. He doesn't demand she perform happiness. He creates the kind of space where she can exhale. He doesn't bring chaos into calm moments. He doesn't unload his every stress the moment she walks through the door. He regulates himself, not because he doesn't have hard days, but because he understands that a home should be a refuge, not another arena. He is deliberate about the energy he brings into the room. This is Stoic wisdom applied to love. Recognize what is in your power and use that power with intention. You cannot control every circumstance, but you can control whether you are a source of turbulence or a source of steadiness. A man who protects a woman's peace, not through dominance, but through discipline, is a man she will describe to her friends decades later. She'll say, "I always felt safe with him. Not just physically. I felt safe in every way." There is no higher compliment. Number 6, he apologized without losing himself. This is where a lot of men get it wrong, in one of two ways. The first type never apologizes. His ego is too fragile to admit fault. He deflects, justifies, counterattacks. Every conflict becomes a courtroom, where he is simultaneously the defendant and the judge. The second type over-apologizes. He collapses. He grovels. He makes his remorse so dramatic that it becomes, ironically, another form of self-centeredness, because now she has to manage his guilt on top of her own pain. The Stoic approach is neither of these. Seneca wrote, "A good man corrects his errors and moves forward." Correct and move forward. A real apology from a man with character sounds like this: "I was wrong. Here's what I did and why it was wrong. I'm going to do better." No theater, no self-flagellation. No hidden agenda seeking reassurance. Just accountability, clean, clear, and followed by changed behavior. That kind of apology is so rare that it stops a woman in her tracks, because she has been conditioned in many cases to expect defense, to brace for the argument, to prepare her case. And when a man simply owns it, without drama, without manipulation, and without losing his dignity in the process, she doesn't just forgive him, she respects him more than she did before, because it takes enormous strength to be wrong with grace. We're halfway through, and I want to pause for a second. Which of these first 6 has hit closest to home for you? Drop it in the comments right now. The number. Even just the number, because I read those comments. And what you share helps me understand what to go deeper on in future videos. And if this content is resonating with you, if you feel like this is a different kind of conversation, share this video with one person who needs to hear it. That's how we grow this community, one real conversation at a time. All right, let's keep going, because 4 through 10 are where it gets really interesting. Number 7, he made her better, without ever trying to fix her. Here's a trap many well-intentioned men fall into. They see a woman they care about, they see her potential, and they begin, subtly or not so subtly, improving her, correcting, suggesting, optimizing. And she feels it. She always feels it. She feels like a renovation project. The Stoics understood the difference between influence and imposition. Marcus Aurelius, who had the literal power to command everyone around him, chose to lead by example, not by edict, not by lecture, by being. A man who embodies discipline, curiosity, courage, and depth inspires the people around him simply by being who he is. He doesn't say, "You should read more." He reads, and his love of ideas becomes contagious. He doesn't say, "You should take care of your health." He lives with physical intentionality, and his energy invites her to meet him there. He doesn't try to elevate her. He simply lives at an elevation and makes her feel welcome there. The woman who was touched by a man like this will tell you, "He never made me feel like I needed to be different. He just made me want to be more of who I already was." That is the highest form of masculine influence. Number 8, he kept his word, especially when it cost him something. Anyone can keep a promise when it's convenient. That's not character. That's just low friction. Character is revealed in the inconvenient promise. The plan you made on a good day, held to on a terrible day. The commitment you keep when you're exhausted, when something better came up, when no one would really blame you for bailing. Epictetus was enslaved. He had every reason to abandon hope, to abandon principle, to simply survive by becoming whatever his master required. Instead, he developed the most rigorous philosophy of personal integrity in the ancient world. He said, "Seek not the good in external things, seek it in yourselves." In other words, your word is internal property. No one can take it from you, but you can give it away every time you break a promise. A man who keeps his word when it costs him something is communicating something profound to a woman. I am reliable not because conditions are favorable. I am reliable because that is who I am. That kind of man becomes her definition of safety. And safety, true, earned, demonstrated safety, is something a woman never forgets. Number 9, and this one is counterintuitive. He pursued something greater than her approval. Now hear me out, because this is not about being cold or distant or playing games. This is about something the Stoics held as absolutely essential: purpose. Marcus Aurelius was not only a husband and father. He was a philosopher, a general, a steward of an empire. He had a mission that extended beyond his personal relationships, and that mission gave him a gravity that made everything around him more meaningful. Seneca wrote, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how." A man without a why is a man who makes the relationship his entire world. And that sounds romantic, but here's the truth. A woman cannot be a man's purpose. She cannot be his North Star, his source of self-worth, his reason for existing. That is not partnership. That is pressure. That is a weight no human being should have to carry for another. But a man who has his own North Star, who is pursuing his purpose, building his legacy, becoming who he was called to be, brings the fullness of that energy into the relationship. He is not needy. He is nourishing. He doesn't require her validation to feel good about himself. So when he chooses to be with her, she feels chosen. Truly chosen. Not out of desperation, but out of abundance. That feeling, that of being chosen by a man who doesn't need you but deeply wants you, is one of the most unforgettable experiences a human being can have. And number 10, the last one. The one that ties everything together. He made her feel like time stopped. Not through grand gestures, not through extravagance, not through performing romance for an audience. Through presence. Pure, complete, undivided presence. We've come full circle, because presence is where we started, and presence is where everything ends. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, on his deathbed, is said to have spoken not of his campaigns or his philosophy, but of the people, the individuals whose lives he had touched, the moments of real human connection. Because here is what the Stoics knew, and what we, in our age of infinite distraction, desperately need to remember. Time is the only resource that cannot be renewed. When a man gives a woman his time, his actual, undivided, irreplaceable time, he is giving her the most valuable thing he has. Not money, not status, not words, presence. And in a world where everyone is constantly somewhere else, mentally, digitally, emotionally, a man who is simply here is a man who becomes mythological in her memory. She will remember the night you put the phone away and just talked until 3 a.m. She will remember the moment you noticed something small, something no one else ever noticed, and said it out loud. She will remember the way you looked at her like she was the most interesting person in the room. Because to you in that moment she was. That kind of presence doesn't just create attraction, it creates memory. And memory becomes meaning. And meaning, once given, is never fully taken back. 10 things. He made her feel seen. He had a code he refused to break. He was calm when everything screamed chaos. He grew without being pushed. He protected her peace, not just her safety. He apologized without losing himself. He made her better without trying to fix her. He kept his word when it cost him something. He pursued something greater than her approval. And he made her feel like time stopped. None of these are tricks. None of these are tactics. These are character traits, forged through practice, through discipline, through the daily, unglamorous work of becoming. This is what the Stoics understood that most modern men have forgotten. You cannot manufacture magnetism. You can only build character and let magnetism follow. The woman who never forgets you won't remember you because of what you said. She'll remember you because of who you were. And who you were, who you are, is being decided right now, not in some distant future. Right now, in how you respond to difficulty, in whether you keep your word when it's inconvenient, in how present you are in the next conversation that matters. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Use that strength, build that character. Become that man, not for her, for you." Because a man who becomes his best self, not for approval, not for reward, but because he cannot tolerate being less than he was called to be, that man doesn't just attract the right people into his life. He becomes worthy of keeping them. If this video gave you something to think about, something to act on, I want to know. Leave a comment below. Which of these 10 is the one you're going to focus on starting today? Just one, the one that hit hardest. Let me know. And if you know a man who needs to hear this, share it with him. Not as a critique, as a gift. That's how we raise each other. Hit the like button if this earned it. Subscribe if you want more conversations like this. We're building something here. A community of men who are serious about who they're becoming. I'll see you in the next one.